I don't know how we do anything about that.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, oh, we're live.
Yes, I forgot that I pressed that button. Hello, everyone. We are live.
And as organised as we usually are.
Yep. Oh, boy. Yeah. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's book show. Wow. Book club discussion. I'm clearly awake right now. But we're discussing Borderline by Mishell Baker. Yay. Yes, Carrie was prepared. I'm not at all. My book is in the other room.
Although I'm really proud there's a former library copy and they've glued the plastic to the book and I can't take it off and I hate plastic.
Crimes.
I hate that.
Anyway, I got it cheap secondhand, so I can't really complain. But
yeah, this is true. At least there's that. Yeah, I feel like I am very out of practice at doing these for some reason. Even though I was on the live show last month, I don't know what's happening. I see Stephanie and Marlene are here, and I think, yep, hello. Yeah, do we need to introduce ourselves, or should we just dive in?
Let's do it for posterity in case we go viral. Let's just do it. It'd be great.
Good idea.
This is the kind of content that goes viral, right? Long book-related content.
For an urban fantasy book that came out in like 2017 or something. No, what? Hang on. When did that come out? I think it's older than that. Anyway. Yes.
While we're introducing ourselves, I will look it up.
Okay. Yep. Yes. So I am Kayla, and my channel is Crack Into a Good Book. That was, I don't know what else to say.
That'll do.
Yeah. Hey.
I'm Kerry, and my channel is Kerry Louise Reads. I'm on hiatus. Oh, I can't say that word today. Hopefully coming back soon. So, yeah.
But you're here now.
I'm here now.
That's right.
And I'm Judith. I'm from Dead Good Book Reviews, and I'm very excited to be here today.
Yay.
And the book was published in 2016, so you weren't far off.
There's Nikki. Excellent. Hey, Nikki.
Hey, yay!
That was perfect timing. We were very briefly introducing ourselves.
Excellent.
It's your turn in that introduction. I apologise to throw you in at the deep end.
No, that took me a while. Hi, I'm Nikki. I'm useless.
Oh, no.
Pretty much it.
No.
Judith, have you got a Dead Good Books mug?
Thank you, yes.
Wow.
Katie made it for me in one of those like little pottery cafes that you always think about going to and then you never go to. But we did go, and she made it for me.
Nice.
That is the most pro move I have ever seen. I love it.
It's also just the largest mug in the house. That's all I need.
Excellent. Yeah, so I guess we'll just start with the spoiler-free section with just some general thoughts and ratings, I suppose. So
I was thinking maybe we should do content warnings first, because there were quite a lot, and there are probably things we're touching on, just in case anyone watching is sensitive to any of the things. There's quite a lot of things that could be triggering in this book, and that was one of the reasons I was a bit worried about reading it myself. It was fine for me, even with how I've been recently, and actually really powerful for me in a lot of ways. But yeah, I think it's worth mentioning those first, if everyone's right with that. So there's off-page reference to attempted suicide and suicidal thoughts, off-page sexual harassment, I would say, and then on the page self-harm, lots of discussion of different types of mental illnesses. There's more and I can't think of what it is.
I think those are the main ones.
Yeah.
Like also trying to think. Yeah.
Off-page discussion of successful suicide as well with her dad.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It's like, I know there's more shit. There's a lot of trauma in this book, but we promise you it's still a good time.
Yeah, and there's some kind of violent stuff, but again, I think most of the violence is off page. Although when she loses her temper, she does hit people with her cane or things.
Which I support a little bit, I'm not going to lie.
I mean, I don't condone violence, but I understand why she gets violent.
Like, we're not saying do it, but
yeah. So, well, I gave it 4 stars, solid 4 stars. Yeah, it wasn't a perfect book for me, but there was a lot in there that I really enjoyed. I thought Millie's a great character. I think we'll probably talk about the representation a bit more, but a lot of that was quite powerful for me. So I don't have the same conditions that Millie does, but I do have a mental illness and I do have a physical disability. And so to see those things being done really well, in my opinion, I really, there's one bit that we'll talk about probably in the spoiler section that just hit me in a good way. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. So thank you, Kayla, for picking it. I never would have heard about it.
Yeah. I was like, why has no one thrown this at me? This is a very me book. Having a look to see what I gave it in the end. I think I gave it. It says 4, but I think I mean 4.5 because I loved it.
I was a 4 as well. I ended up having a really good time. I did the audiobook.
Cool.
So which was very well done, I thought. And
yeah, I did that.
Yeah, I was surprised by how much I liked it because I don't typically like anything that is modern. Not in the sense like I'll only read the classics. But if it's the real world and it's modern, I tend not to enjoy it. But I actually thought this was really, really good, and it felt very researched, but not in like a hugely info dumpy. This is my thesis kind of way, which I appreciated. Yeah.
Wow. I'm surprised that, I think, was I the lowest rating? I gave it 3.5 stars.
And you recommended it.
I did. Yeah, I think, I'm trying to think. I definitely did enjoy it, and it's one that, it's a series that I would be interested in continuing. I think, I wonder if it's because I do read a lot of urban fantasy, and there are ones out there that I've enjoyed a lot more. Could be. But yeah, I mean, I think this had some really interesting things. Like the mental health aspect was a pretty cool, I guess, exploration that I haven't seen in a lot of urban fantasy in particular. The Fae stuff is not like exceedingly different, I think, from other things that I've seen before. The Hollywood setting, though, was kind of interesting, and I did like the whole
I liked that
situation. I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah,
there was some good name dropping as a result of that, actually.
Yeah, I liked that. What else? Just like generally words. What am I doing? I mean, I think the plot and the pacing were a little off for me at times, like in the middle in particular. But as a whole, I definitely did enjoy it, and I think there's some interesting potential for future books.
Yes, yeah, I'm interested to see where the series goes.
And I think it's a trilogy and completed, so that's nice.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I'm definitely planning to pick up the next one, given how this one ended. I'm not going to spoil it right now, obviously, but like I think there's hints of things that I'm like, oh, is it going to do that? So I'm like, I want to know. Yeah,
Stephanie says that she's also going to continue.
Excellent.
That's exciting.
Stephanie, make me read it.
I know, right? That's the harder part, actually picking it up. Let's see here. What are some good non-spoilery things we can discuss?
Like
we've all just gone.
Well, we can talk about representation. I don't think that goes too far into spoiler territory. So I was convinced actually that it was Own Voices for borderline personality disorder, just because of the amount of information in there. Having looked at Mishell Baker's website, she has a mental illness, but I don't think it is BPD. She's just done a heck of a lot of research, and I think that is really I can't think of the word. Really good. That's really impressive. And I think it does show that with I mean, saying this, as I say, I have mental illness, I don't have BPD, so I can't speak actually to the accuracy of the representation. But I think it does show that if authors put in the work, they can write characters outside of their own experience. But they have to be willing to do the work. I'd really love to read some Own Voices reviews of this book. I didn't come across any in the couple of days since finishing it because I haven't had time to look. So if anyone knows of any, then send them my way. But there was a really interesting interview with the author, which we can probably share on our Discord or in the description or something, that talks about how she researched the book. Yeah, that's what.
No, I thought that was a really interesting read, actually. Like, as you said, I think she's done a good job doing the research and treating it with respect, and also showing it from Millie's point of view that, like, you know, she does know how to sort of deal with it, but it doesn't mean that she's okay with it all the time, and it doesn't mean that she is okay all the time. Like, you know, like everybody, she has ups and downs and bad days and good days, and I was just like, actually, that felt really realistic.
And I think a lot of the thoughts that I had were around it. She's writing a person with BPD. She's not trying to write, you know, a book that encompasses everything you need to know. And this character experiences every single symptom all of the time, because BPD is such a varied condition. I think that was really well done. And again, I'd be interested to see in later books with different. I assume Millie is still the main character. I do not know. I've not looked. But with different scenarios popping up and how that affects things, and the kind of variableness of life.
Let's see. Yeah, I think that's interesting to get Stephanie's perspective here.
Well, Molly, she saw some people saying that it was good, who were Own Voices or therapists as well, which is brilliant.
There's another comment a little bit further down.
Oh yeah, here we go.
Yeah. And then on the other aspect, the physical disability stuff, again, I'm not an amputee, so I can't speak to exactly to the accuracy of it. But there were so many points where how Millie reacts to her disability just really resonated with me. Like, there's one point where she's both pleased and frustrated that people don't offer to help her carry her stuff up the stairs. And I was so much like, sometimes when I'm struggling, like, there's so many stairs in my college, and sometimes when I'm struggling, I'm just like, would love someone to say, or can I help you carry something? And I'm really frustrated if they don't. But then sometimes when people do ask to help me, I'm like, no, I'm fine. I can.
Yeah.
And it's just, it kind of encompassed that so well. And actually, I'm going to bring out the quote now before we get into spoiler stuff. There was one bit that really hit me, and we'll talk a bit more about the context of it. But so when she finds the picture of herself and she can feel the emotions of the person that drew the picture. And there was just a line that when I read it, I just had to stop reading because it got me right here. And where it says, she stood with the careful straightness of someone who took pain for granted. And I'm actually welling up a little bit because when you live with chronic pain, like that just, it really... I felt really seen reading this book, even though I don't have the same disability as Millie. And it was really powerful for me to be reading it at this time when I'm fairly recently diagnosed. So, yeah, I'm just so grateful that we chose it.
Yay.
I just want to, like, jump over and hug you.
Yes, I know. And I think there's also something at the very end dealing with that same person that we can get into with the spoiler talk, but it was like, had some feels there with her just kind of, I don't know, feeling in a better place, I would say. But the representation was really interesting. I think I mean, basically, like everybody has been saying, it felt really well researched, and I feel like it was one of those things where I couldn't tell if the author had that particular, you know, mental illness or whatever, or if it was like, or if she was like a psychologist or something and had experience treating patients with BPD. But it was like, I don't know. I feel like it was just so well done, and it felt very realistic and super interesting to read about because, I mean, I don't know anyone with borderline personality disorder. So it's just, I don't know. I think it's just interesting to get different perspectives and ways of life, I suppose.
Yeah. And what I thought was also it wasn't just I have an encyclopedic knowledge of my own condition. For the first part, we know why she has that. She's been working on this and she's been in therapy. But also it's very much she has that level of detailed knowledge about all of the set and Hollywood production-y stuff as well, because that's another aspect to her personality, because people aren't just the conditions that they have.
Yeah.
I like that, because if this book had just been, I'm a detective with a chronic condition of mental health problems, you'd be like, where are we going with this? But then because stuff tied up in like the LA dream, I guess, of I want to work in this field that is really difficult, but I'm making this choice to do that. It felt very cohesive in a really interesting way.
And I think also like the way it was kind of like she's not a detective, but actually she's good at that. I was just like, I love this. I love this. Yeah. It's like the detail orientated shit and the noticing things and the reasons why they'd sort of highlighted that. And she was like, oh, I could maybe do this. I was just like, I'm here for this. Hello, hi, I want to read this. Hi. I was literally being like in the book, being like, like when I got to that, I was just, I don't know what it was. I think there was just something about that I was just like, oh, why don't more books do it like that? Like, you know, someone discovering they're good at something, or someone else seeing it for them, which was really nice as well. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was the some of the amputee stuff felt very realistic to what I know from watching too much Last Leg and stuff like that. But you know, it was just stuff like kind of like, you know, you can't always wear your prosthetics and it is really uncomfortable. Like you do have to do it properly and stuff like that. I did feel a little bit like there were places where she would have maybe been happier not having to do it all the time, and that could have been got into a little bit more. But I feel like I don't know whether or not that was actually kind of like she needs to be able to walk around and not be in the wheelchair and stuff like that, or if it was just actually like she needed someone to push her out of her comfort zone. So I'm not sad about it, but I think that was the only thing that triggered for me that I was a bit like, should they be a bit more sympathetic? Like, you know, not too much, because actually she did need a push, but like, you know, accepting the fact that actually prosthetics are fucking uncomfortable. Like sometimes you just can't. Like, but I think that was the only point at which I was a bit like, not sure.
Well, I think it's an interesting cast of characters, and that, you know, Marlene had said just, you know, Carol was really interesting, which yes, I agree. But I feel like just everybody kind of having something going on was a really interesting, just dynamic, and how everybody plays together. And it was what's his name, Twan, I think, which I swear to God I kept reading it as T1 because that's, I don't know why I was putting an I in there. Anyway, like she felt like he was kind of standoffish, but then I think slowly realizes like, oh no, he's just this way with everybody. But I feel like there's a lot of potential for misunderstandings, I guess, just with how everybody is and like the different personalities and whatnot. And I feel like kind of going on with Carol, there were a lot of surprises with her character, I think, as the book progresses, and I feel really bad for her. But I also think it's really interesting because that particular like storyline as to what happened to her, like that's something that comes up a lot with Faye, but you don't really get to explore like the aftermath of how does this affect these people. So I thought that was a cool, I guess, exploration of so that
cool,
seemed
but
a little bit
heartbreaking.
different. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the reasons I want to read the next books is I feel we get a lot more time with her, and I'm there for that. So,
do we have any other spoiler-free thoughts, or should we dive into spoilers?
Spoil everything.
Okay, yeah.
Spoil.
So, kind of speaking of side characters, well, should we dive in more in depth with Carol, or just kind of?
I was just thinking, I'd really love to talk about Elliot.
Yes, that was interesting. Just all of that situation, like, you know, I think it's not the healthiest to put all of your emotions. Well, I mean, that was a very interesting idea to be able to like physically move your emotion. Well, physically, I don't know. metaphysically move your emotions into this like dragon creature thing. But like that's obviously not healthy. And then I thought it was like towards the end of the book when Millie is like, no, you really need to just like learn how to adapt to having all of your emotions at once.
Yeah.
I thought that was like a rather powerful scene.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I would love a little like backstory novella of like the therapist trying to get through to her. And then like Carol kind of going away and being like, fuck that, I'm just putting it, I'm having an emotion dragon, I'm not dealing with it. And the therapist being like, oh fucking hell. Like, that's just all I want in life right now.
Just walking into the next appointment like, well, I did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always just like, why would you do that to yourself? Oh God. Like, but equally, I understood the urge. But she went through therapy. She should definitely not have done it.
Emotion dragon. Yes.
Emotion.
Sometimes I feel like I could use an emotion dragon.
I mean, yeah.
Is that not what pets are, essentially? I just throw Luna at Katie whenever she's sad. I'm like, here's the dog. She's better at this than that.
This is true.
Dear.
Yeah. But yeah, so I guess like, I don't know, going into the more spoilery, like labeling what I was talking about with the changeling aspect. Man, that shit got dark at times. Like,
I was not expecting that to be her backstory.
No, not at all. And also that she's 19. Like, I thought she was a middle-aged woman.
Yeah.
And in charge and having to make so many tough choices. Of course. No.
Yeah,
Stressful.
emotion dragon makes sense. Like, whereas like, who the fuck does that to a 16-year-old girl? What the fuck?
Yeah, so I have questions about the Arcadia Project. Like, what are they doing? Why are they putting a teenager in charge? Like,
why are they terrible
happening?
people?
Yes, yes.
I mean, it does kind of get explained at one point. It was to do with the circumstances under which the previous leader, who seemed like a much older individual, died. But I still don't, like, the logic just didn't quite fit for me. It makes for a really interesting story. I suppose the story would be much less interesting if they had someone sensible in charge.
Yeah. I mean, like, of all the other people there as well, like, I'd be like, would you pick those? No. No. Like,
and there's the bit at the end where Millie's like, I could go public with this and ruin you all. And then she's like, oh, so that's why you chose mentally ill people.
Yeah, that was harsh.
That's kind of honestly what I figured, though, because I feel like that's also something I've seen in urban fantasy before, particular or just like things dealing with the Fae. It's a lot of like, people with some sort of mental illness, and they're not always believed. Which, okay, oh my god, that reminds me of what is it called? Little Darlings by Melanie Golding, I think. It deals with the Fae, but it's more of like a thriller, and she is convinced that there's like a Fae hag that steals her twins. And it's very interesting because you can't quite tell if it's real or not. But anyway, that's just kind of another example of the Fae and mental illness. What did you think of Teo there?
Oh, Teo.
I will never be okay again.
That got real dark and brutal at the end. I was not expecting any of that.
I'm not okay with it.
Yep.
Yeah. Although I was surprisingly also really affected by Gloria's death. Because there's kind of been a small amount of reconciliation, and I really wanted to see that relationship grow and develop. And so actually I kind of felt a little bit robbed of that. Teo as well, like how their relationship had developed millions through the book, and then I think we'll see a bit more of Millie processing that hopefully in the next book, because because she'll have some level of guilt because he involved Vivian because of what she'd said to him. So yeah, just all like the climax of it, like, because I planned the buddy read, and I was like, I got to the point where I should have stopped on Thursday night, and I was like, no, I'm not stopping. Because it was just getting, I think they were just about on their way to like the final climax, and I was like, oh, no, I've got to carry on, I've got to see this now.
No, I think kind of the Teo thing, I'm gutted because I wanted them to be like BFFs forever. And like I wanted them to sort of have a bit more of a like, yes, I was a dick, yes, you were a dick, let's be friends again sort of moment. But it felt like it might have been okay, if you know what I mean. Like, and I think you made a good point with Gloria. I just wanted them to have like a knockdown, drag out fight. Like, I just needed them to like lay it on the table and just be like, do you know what? I don't hate you for like, you know, I'm not, you know, you think I'm judging you because you're short. I'm judging you because you're a fucking asshole, and we're going to get through this. But also because I have these hang-ups about Southern women, and like, you know, and like have that moment where it was like, yeah, do you know what? I am struggling with it, but it is my problem. And like, I think Millie would have got there in the end. And I was just like, I really wanted you to do that. I'm so sad. Like,
at the implied group therapy session after everything's done and everyone's gone back home, and they're just like, right, so time to talk.
God.
Yeah.
Some things were said.
Yeah. And I mean, I did like the fight that they did have. I'm just sad they didn't have the fight I wanted them to have afterwards, which is where they sort of made up as a result, like, and actually managed to talk to each other. But I don't know if that would have ever happened because of who the two women are. Like, you know, I love that, Stephanie.
Yes. This was a previous comment that Marlene had said. Yeah, so that's interesting. I mean, for me, I've read so many Fae books, guys.
Share your wisdom, Kayla. Share it.
Yeah. No. This, like, it's typically broken up into the Seelie and Unseelie courts, and like Seelie are like the beautiful, good Fae, and then the Unseelie are like the unsightly and evil Fae. But there's a lot of wiggle room, I think, in those definitions, and it's like really most of the time the Seelie are not super nice. They just happen to look not like,
they just look nice.
Creepy. Yeah.
I like in like Dresden Files, like everyone's like, oh, the summer court are the nice ones, and they're like,
no.
Are they? And I think it's just like I don't read a lot of Fae books, and there's certain types of Fae books that I really don't like. But I do like it in this sort of like the way it was done here. I like it with Dresden Files, and I liked Holly Black's recent ones. So like there's bits of it I like, and it tends to be where you get a little bit of the intrigue, a little bit of the like everyone's an asshole, like yay. And I'm just like going, why do I enjoy this? I don't understand.
I feel like Fae can so often get really bogged down in the like rules of it all, where it's like, well, the Fae can't lie, but they can be tricksy, and like that's the whole hinge of the plot. It's like, well, they didn't technically lie to you, you just didn't ask the right questions. Yeah. And this had that, but it didn't feel like super, oh, I'm so clever because I've done this with the Fae. It was more like, look, the Fae have very different logic to us, so just don't try and logic your way out of this. It's not going to happen.
I actually really, that's a really good point. It's definitely, it's like, yes, that's still true, but it's also irrelevant.
And I liked that it was like an element of the plot without being the central turning point. So you have that with the situation with Teo, where Vivian promised him she'd find his echo, but she didn't actually promise to unite them. And I was just like, and I liked that as a touch, but if that had been like the central like premise of the plot, then I think it would have been frustrating. But yeah, I don't read a lot of Fae stuff either, I read a bit of urban fantasy, but I really enjoyed this. Like that, there were elements, there were explanations. It clearly was building on traditions, but it wasn't. Again, like there was a lot that could have been info dumpy about this book, but it just really wasn't. It was all the information I felt was like just. I think because we were learning things with Millie, in terms of like the Fae stuff, it made it a helpful vehicle for us to learn things ourselves. But also, didn't make it feel info dumpy when she was talking about the stuff she already knew about either, because we were learning with her, so we were able to learn from her. Does that make any sort of sense?
Yeah.
I did feel a little bit. I don't know how other people feel. I understand it's because she didn't really have any other options, and she's very quickly shown things. But it did feel like she bought into the whole thing very quickly. Like she's just kind of like, I mean, you're telling me they're a fairy tale? Yeah, of course. Why not? Yeah, I'll go. I'll become it. Ooh, glasses? Yes, I'm down.
I mean, in fairness, I think it does. But equally, part of me was like, in her situation, I'd be like, do you know what? Yeah, fuck this. You know, like, how bad can these hallucinations be?
I also really loved the bit, this isn't like anything relevant to any discussion, but where she's like, just so you know, there is a gate immediately above your bedroom. It's probably not an issue, but if they do start war with us, that might be above your head. It'll be fine.
That was one of my favourite scenes, especially because it's right after Millie is like freaked out by the gates at the other house, and she's like, I don't know what I'm more freaked out about, the gate of like thing that made my skin crawl or imminent war on my face. Like, I was just like, I love it.
Wasn't it? Because she was like, well, will I die then? And Carol's like, well, we all war starts. She's like, we might as well get over with then.
Practical thinking.
Yes. There was
one of the many reasons I enjoyed Carol.
Yeah. It was towards the end of the book that like actually made me snort out loud, because I was just like, oh my god. It was where Millie had that like dissociation event and ends up peeing herself essentially, and then is calling Anaya, and her assistant like comes to pick her up and is just like, don't worry about it. And there was some sort of like
story about what she did when she was drunk, and Millie was
like,
I do feel better now.
Yes. Yep. Needing to go to the bathroom without lifting up the lid, I believe, of the toilet was the exact line. I was like, oh god. But yeah, so that was fun. I think what was also really interesting for me, and I don't know why this came as a surprise. I guess it was just something I hadn't thought of. Because like with the Fae, a common weakness of theirs is iron, and that was a very great advantage for Millie here with like having all of this iron in her body. Yes, Stephanie also loved this scene. Excellent.
And she keeps meeting people, and they're like, "Oh, don't touch me! You have too much iron inside you."
And then, like at the end, when they just like use her leg to smack people around, like, yes, I love this.
This book is so hard to recommend, because on the one hand you're like, right, I need to tell you about all the really difficult content warnings, and like, please don't engage with this book if you're not in a space 2. But if you are in a space 2, it's a really fun time. And it's like a great adventure-y.
And at some point you will get smacked with a leg.
We love it. Love to see
hard to find the right person to recommend this to.
That was part of everybody. It was just such a roller coaster. Like some of the plot twists I think I saw coming a little bit, but there was so much that was just like, oh, okay, well, that's new. Oh, wow. Okay, did not see that coming.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was just like, so like the one that really got me was so we mentioned about the drawings, and when she realizes so all along they've all been assuming that Rivenholt, who's the Fae that's gone missing that they've been looking for, they've all assumed that he has been doing these drawings. And then they find out that it's actually another Fae who's also gone missing, who is Millie's echo. And that's why that's why he's drawn her. And just like that moment, I was just like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, no, that was definitely a surprise for me. I don't know why I didn't see that coming at all, but I was just like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing. This is cool.
It's the bit where they're like, how on earth can anyone have known about this rendezvous that whoever was, I can't remember who was having the rendezvous. It's like, how did they know? And she's like, oh yeah, I left that email there. And so she's like, why on earth would you print out an email?
Yes.
Yeah. I have memory problems. This is what you do when you have memory problems.
Yeah.
When you have a disability, you think of all the ways to get around problems that you can. And that was just like, yeah.
Brilliant.
Made me laugh.
Yeah. I think just on the note of the drawings, I really liked all of that in particular, not only with the drawings of like Millie and like how that kind of conveyed feeling, but also the ones that Rivenholt does do sort of later on, where it's like the jungle and the Wild West situation. I was like, that's super cool. I love that.
So cool.
Yeah.
Right, and like them having to run from fake things running them over who won't do any damage but will like wreck your soul. I was like,
yeah,
how is this so good? Like, honestly, I was there going, this should be low stakes, but it's not, and I don't understand why. It's just, honestly, I really enjoyed that scene.
That was pretty great. Yeah, I mean,
and
I
then
feel
you
like
get a redux of everyone else running from it, and I was like,
yes. Yep.
That's
Ooh,
also true.
this is a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, I feel like that's like super useful for Hollywood. You could save so much on like set design
and extras.
Yeah, I wonder how well it would come out on film. We'll never know.
No. Unless I can't even remember which famous director was name dropped. Who was
Spielberg got name dropped at some point.
Spielberg, yeah. I couldn't remember which one it was. If Spielberg actually is a wizard, then
oh yes,
we have all seen it probably on a regular basis.
Yeah, I was like, how are you getting away with these name drops? Like, because there was good moments, because there was like 5 or 6 people name dropped.
Yeah.
It was good.
I definitely remember Spielberg, and I recognized the others, but couldn't tell you what they are.
There was a few. The other thing I liked was that like she was not head over heels in love with her Echo because of all the iron. Although part of me was like, surely at some point she's going to be like, fuck, I need to go and have these like iron pins replaced with plastic. But yeah, awkward. But I did really like their relationship, and that it's not going to be sort of like typical, I guess, of an Echo and things like that. But I think also like I'm looking forward to seeing some exploration of like the classism stuff that they have on the face side, and someone earlier saying like, oh, she's definitely going to go through the gate. I mean, one imagines, and like I feel like she's going to go on the other side and be like, what the fuck are you guys doing? These are real people.
Well, do you think she can go through the gate right now with all that iron?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe not.
Good question. Yeah, I'm thinking about the Echo stuff. Like, I liked that it wasn't always a romantic thing. But I liked also that Millie could see that there was potential for it to be that for her. And I think this was someone mentioned at the beginning when I was talking about the picture. She has this kind of fantasy of her and Clay Bright together. But usually when she's had fantasies, she's pictured herself being able-bodied before her accident. But when she sees herself as she is now, with all her scars and her amputations. And again, that was another moment that was just like really powerful.
Really powerful.
That was the one that hit me in the feels, where I was like, oh boy.
There was a scene earlier that you mentioned. I was like, I can literally remember where I was when I listened to it, because it's so powerful. It was the having had the accident and I sending, was it Rosa out for her and stuff like that. I was driving to park somewhere, and I was just like, I just remember like that, going around and being like, And it was just really, really visceral to be like, actually, it's such a tiny part of the book, but it obviously hit home enough for me to really stick. Because normally I don't remember stuff like that.
Okay, so this is, I'm just kind of curious to get your thoughts on this. So I kind of thought there was something suspicious. I mean, this is like some of the more content warning scenes, I guess. But I felt like there was something off about her interactions with that professor and then her suicide attempt. Like, I thought there was some sort of like magical, potentially, intervention that was causing her to
I was
do that.
expecting that.
Yeah. Okay, I'm glad that I was not the only
she's
one.
Got BPD, I think it could just be like the rejection and as she says and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But there was definite vibes of like, wait, was there more to that professor? Or is it just genuinely that you can't remember the bits around it? Either which way, I need that professor to burn.
I mean, it could be both.
Yeah, it could be both.
Went into a dissociative state and wouldn't have known what she was doing, but there could have also been. That means that there is possibility for something else to have been interfering. Yeah, that whole situation with the professor, and like, I mean, we only hear it how she says it to Vivian, but the whole thing just screamed of gaslighting, didn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And particularly if we don't know at what point Millie was diagnosed with BPD, so we don't know. I don't think we don't know if she knew that she had BPD before the suicide attempt or not. So, but when she looks back on it, she can see that she had a problematic attraction because of her condition, but we don't know if she necessarily knew that at the time as well. And clearly there's something wrong with that professor that could see that she was vulnerable and exploited it, whether she was aware of that vulnerability in herself or not.
I got the feeling she learned after, but knew like something was up.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It would be interesting to see if we get more on some of that. Part of me doesn't want him to have been any way involved with Fae or magic, because I feel like it sort of takes away from the fact that she does have BPD and you know, like, would have made some pretty terrible decisions. But equally, like, it doesn't mean that she wouldn't have been suggestive, and he could have literally said, go and jump off the roof, and she might have been like, that's a good idea. Like, you know, there's like, you know, there doesn't have to be magic involved for that. But part of me does want it to be kind of part of the story as well, because I feel like there is more to that storyline. But maybe that's just because we get to see him die in a fire in the next book.
One can hope.
I mean, if he's involved in Hollywood and that's a hotspot for Faye, then there's definitely scope for him to come back in some other form in the future.
I think it's a tricky thing to do, and I've seen it done really badly in other things where you try and bring in the reality and then you mix in magic, and it often leads to like, we found the magical cure to your disability, hooray. So I think I'd actually be not happy, wouldn't be like woohoo yay, but it wouldn't be like, oh, they never explained whether that was that or not. I'm quite happy for it to be left in the unclear, because I think
that's why I wanted it to be BPD.
Bad people do bad things, and it's not always magical, you know. I think that's why I don't want it to have a magic response, because I feel like actually, like, she's acknowledged it as part of her condition and you know, a consequence of not having had it diagnosed or medicated or whatever at the time, and things like that, and it, you know, I feel like it would take quite a big part of who she is away in some ways.
So what are your thoughts on Millie overall? I know we've kind of touched on this. I feel like, I mean, I kind of mentioned this in the chat. There were times where I just felt like, a vague sense of unease, I think, with the book, and just like something doesn't seem quite right, I guess, or just like, I don't know. I clearly don't know how to explain it. I still have not gotten better at this. But I think there were definitely times where, like, I liked Millie as a whole, but I think there were times where I was like, okay. Like, get it together. You're being a little rude and ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think for me there were the points where she, and I don't know if it's, sorry, Katie's just got home, so the dog might just do a little bit of a happy scream. I think it was trying, my charitable reading is just trying to, my word, woman, pull yourself together. So she's trying to convey like the way she's overthinking everything and like overanalyzing all of her own thought patterns. But it really felt like she got very fixated on race at times. And I didn't know quite how I felt about it. And I don't know if that's a product of the book being from 2016. And like we've had different conversations since then. But there were a lot of times where I was like, I don't know where this is coming from and like why this is relevant, you know.
But it was also it is challenged in the book. Like
oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. I thought was really well done. Like because
I'm sorry, Lucy.
Whereas Lily can't hear it, so she's just quite happy on my lap right now.
Yeah, and I think it was quite realistic because sometimes you think those things without realizing it, and so to have it challenged to be like, no, it's not okay to think that, even if you do have personality disorder, it's not okay to think that. Yeah, that's a really good point, Marlene. Like if she grew up in the deep south, and with really awful sounding grandparents. I was so relieved when she didn't go.
I know.
Yeah. I think actually like it's fine to think it as long as you straight away be like, fuck no, bad, you know, like because you know if it's something you've grown up with, you have to constantly say, do you know what, that's not actually what I believe, it's just an instinct to have that because it's been drummed into me. And part of me quite liked that she is quite flawed. But I do know what you mean. Like I feel like we probably could have had a little bit more of that, but maybe that will come through. But you know, I don't know.
Yeah, it wasn't one of these things where I was like, and therefore the book is bad.
No,
it was more like in terms of like my reading her as a character, you do kind of go like, oh, I'm not like 1,000% rooting for all of the things that you've got going on. And I want you to do this learning and growing and as you say, like yay when people challenge it.
I think it also reflected one aspect of something that is common to people with BPD, though, that they don't always have the filter and they say a lot of harsh and judgmental things. And I think that was why it didn't bother me, because like I go for character-driven books and I have to like the character to want to carry on reading. And I thought Millie was great. I really liked her as a character, and part of that was because she was flawed. But I understood why she was being a jerk. She is a jerk sometimes, but I knew where it was coming from and why she was reacting the way she was. And part of that is credit to Mishell Baker for being able to explain borderline personality disorder in such a way that helped you to understand why Millie was being a jerk when she was. But also giving us that insight into Millie as a person and her emotions, and taking us on that journey. I actually thought it was really well done. So I understand like there were some places where it's like she comes across as really judgmental, a bit bigoted in places, but having that understanding of A, her background, and B, her personality disorder, just I thought, for me, it didn't detract from Millie as a character. It actually made me appreciate her more as a character because she was being awful, but I still liked her.
Yes. No, I think that's fair. I think some of like that weird feeling that I was getting may really just be like the time when it was published, because I feel like that sort of thing was more common. I mean, it's not like it was all that long ago, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like books coming out these days are a little bit better about some of just like, I don't know, the vague things that happen. I'm doing such a great job of explaining this.
Yeah, because the scene that you mentioned in the chat was when she asked Tio if he's gay when they are on their way to the Sealy bar, which is in like the area of town. And I think you can read that in quite an antagonistic way, depending on your brain when you're reading it, or you can read just to like a curiosity about him as a person. So there were moments like that out of context could be taken really badly, but actually in the context of Millie as a character, I'm fairly certain she's probably buy.
So.
Some of the other stuff that she says,
Yeah.
was like there wasn't that element. Sorry, my word. Element of anti-gay stuff or homophobia. I didn't read it in that way personally, but I can see how other people might.
So what's interesting with that particular example is the first time I read it, like when I was just like reading it in the book, I think that was when, like, I don't know if it was just my mood, but I was like, this seems off. But then when you took a picture and like sent it again, I reread it, I was like, why was I feeling off about this? So maybe it was just my mood. I don't know. It's a mystery.
To be fair, I think at the time I read it, I was a bit like, whoa, really? And then like literally like 2-3 pages later, I was probably like, oh, you're just being yourself.
Yeah.
You know, lack of filter and all. And yeah, like she annoyed me in places and I was a bit like, oh, blimey, you got off the deep end again. But it felt so true to who she was.
Yeah.
That I enjoyed that, you know, that, you know, like I liked her for it because she is, you know, it's not just flawed, she is a whole person. Like, you know, with instinct to just be like, actually, I am going to lose my shit, everyone in this house, and storm out and leave all my stuff behind. And I was just like, you idiot, I love it.
Oh my God. That scene though, and then when she comes back and like is like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, but she knew she had to say that as well, you know, and even at the time she was like, what am I doing here? Like,
when Tuan asks her, oh, what do you want? And she's like, to be forgiven. And he's like, oh, I thought you were just going to say your suitcase.
Yeah.
It cracked me up. She'd had this really profound moment. And he was just like, oh,
Man.
Oh.
Ooh.
I love it.
Stephanie is laughing at us.
Quite accurate.
Yeah. I don't know. Does anyone have other thoughts that we haven't gotten to?
One, which was that I liked the setup of Hollywood star has gone missing and it not being little ingenue who turns out to have been murdered by a man. Like, I just love that subversion of when I think I've just watched too much like Miss Fisher stuff where it's always that little blood star that's getting murdered and you're like, oh, again. Okay, it was nice. I liked that not being a woman. That was nice.
Yeah.
And I liked
Anaya like being like, no, I might have just learned about this and I have no real skills, but I'm going to help you out and be a badass.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, I love you.
Yeah. I liked the whole sorry, words today. Situation, the thing with Berenbaum, the director, and the interaction. That's the word I was looking for. The interactions with him. And like that twist of him having been involved all along. I
hate him.
Leading to the smashing of the car.
Hatred.
Yeah. And then like the bit after, one of the bits that really got to me was the bit afterwards where she sat on the driveway and she can't get up and the security guard stop putting it on and like, no, literally can't stand up. Like,
yeah.
And just that kind of the judgmental that, okay, just because someone's done something wrong, don't treat them like a piece of crap. Actually still recognize them as a human being that actually is really vulnerable at the moment.
Yeah.
And that was one moment that really like hit really hard.
I think for me as well, it wasn't just that she was disabled in that moment. It was that she was like, I know I've done something dumb. Like it doesn't mean that I'm going to like yell and scream at you. Like she had already gone to the point where she was like, okay, I need to have a sensible conversation with this guy. And yes, it was about like, she was then disabled and needed a bit more help and everything like that. But she had already mentally got to the point where she was like, I'm going to have to persuade this guy not to be a dick to me because I, quite rightly destroyed somebody's car. Not even destroyed it. I'd have set the damn thing on fire. Like, my hatred knows no bounds. But like she was already in the place where she was like, okay, actually, I know I need to kind of like person up and like be a real human for a little bit, and then and then it was the part about being like, actually, I need to still be treated like a human being because just because I did that bad thing. And it just happens that, by the way, my legs aren't working right now. And it wasn't about the disability necessarily. It was just that was a factor of it, and I liked that.
Yeah.
Yes, Stephanie.
Yeah. I didn't end up hating Berenbaum. He'd been, to my mind, controversial, but to my mind, he'd been duped. Like
he had, but he was gaslighting her so hard.
Well, yeah, there is that, but I mean, he was essentially being gaslit himself.
Yeah,
so,
no, I know. I felt sorry for him, but I still want him to die in a fire.
No,
Judith's like, no.
Just like some like bot on YouTube has just been like flagging up this whole time.
I think just because of his relationship with Riven, like,
yeah,
if you have
that's fair
connection with someone and they tell you, oh, that isn't actually a real person, they can't feel pain, like, and okay, so he's had a lot of dealings with Arcadia, but mainly through this really skewed perspective of the royalty, that's not the right word, the upper class, whatever the word is. Well, that's a fair point, Marlene.
But no, I know where you're coming from, and I don't disagree.
He doesn't know Arcadia well enough to know.
No.
Like, if he's never met an Arcadian commoner, then he doesn't know whether they're actual people or not. He only has the word of that. Yeah. Does that make sense? Like, it's not quite the same as like class systems in this country or like in our society, where we know, well, some of us know that all classes are people. But you do see it in our class system as well, that some of the upper classes don't treat lower classes like they're people. But if he hasn't actually ever met an Arcadian commoner, then he wouldn't necessarily know that they're actual people as well. Does that make sense? So like, he probably should have realized that it was a bad idea. But if you've got really powerful, really influential people, and Vivian as well, like, she can't lie, but she can talk her way out of any situation, really. And you've got these two really strong, influential people leading you astray. Then, like, I didn't like the way he treated Millie. I didn't think it was okay because, again, he played on her vulnerabilities. But I also didn't end up hating him because he was quite repentant when he realised. And he did do the right thing in the end. And then also he and his wife left to go and run a llama farm or whatever it was. And I was like, okay, you've learned your lesson. And
That feels like the kind of thing where... Oh, sorry. No, mine is completely irrelevant. Nikki, you go.
I was like, it was just more sort of like, you wouldn't even treat animals like that. So that's the point for me, was just like, it was just fairly dreadful. Like, he is not a good person. But I do think he has been very led astray and not necessarily kind of even gaslit, just kind of almost indoctrinated in a particular thing. But as I said, like, you wouldn't treat an animal like that. And what did he think was really happening? He had a level of knowledge that really should have been applied, but then for me, it was also that it wasn't just he treated Millie poorly. He genuinely went out of his way to sort of play on her BPD, to play on like her like being like, oh my god, it's David, like, of him, and then the stuff he says about her to his wife, I was a bit like, that was just harsh. And that was the thing that I was just like, to be fair, I don't hate him. He probably doesn't deserve to die in a fire, but equally, like, he is not a good person and he doesn't deserve to go and live with some llamas. He will treat better than the people he had in the gate. Anger.
It feels like the kind of thing where in book 3 there'll be some far-fetched scenario where they're like, oh, this plan is going to fall apart if we don't have a llama, and someone's going to be like, I know a guy.
I hope that is what happens. That would make my day.
Some like iron filing covered llama just disrupting a Fey battle or something. That's what
my
I would
God.
write.
Yes.
That would be amazing. I'm genuinely going to be disappointed if that is not where it goes. And he does not deserve llamas, you're right.
Oh man.
I
Excellent.
don't know, I'm all about the redemption arc. A good redemption arc.
Perry's just more forgiving than all of us. That's what it is.
I mean,
Yeah.
in my career,
Yeah,
I kind of need to be.
It's a good skill to hone at this stage,
that's
I
fair.
think.
Yeah, smart.
Yeah.
Oh my God. All right. Well, I guess, does anyone have any last minute thoughts?
Not
Stephanie is
from
laughing
me.
at Marlene.
Other than our conspiracies about llamas and potentially
Yes.
setting people on fire, I think we might be okay.
Covered it all. Excellent. Well, cool. I'm so glad everybody liked this book so much. Yay.
I feel like we
I
haven't
was
had
so
one where
glad you
everyone
enjoyed it.
on the live show has enjoyed it in a while.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some outliers.
Yeah. Yay.
I'm so glad you put it forward.
Yeah. It's been
What a
one
good
that
shout.
I've been. Yeah, it's I've wanted to read it for a while. And like I remember seeing it in bookstores and being like, this sounds interesting, and then never picking it up for some reason. So I was like, now we're doing it now.
Yeah. I think it came about because we were talking about urban fantasy and you were like, oh, I want to read this one. It was like, that sounds right up my street. Why aren't I,
Mhm.
why aren't we reading this?
I feel
Such a
like
good
I
idea.
have never heard anyone on BookTube talk about that book.
No, I'd not even come across it. I would
No.
definitely not have read it.
It's got hardly any ratings comparatively on Goodreads either, which just really surprised me because it's a really good quality book and it's just
It
one
is.
I think has flown under the radar.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm going to be
Yeah.
recommending it to people.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I definitely want to continue the series.
Yeah.
As well.
So this is another one where you need to have a section in Discord for us to not read sequels for.
That's right. Well, I mean, I think for me, being urban fantasy, I'm much more likely to pick this up and continue the series. But you never know.
I think if I add it to my scribed library, then there is a
Mhm.
chance I remember I want to read it. That's what needs to happen.
Yeah.
I have not done
That's
that
my
yet.
plan.
Smart. Well, cool. So I think April is The Grace of Kings is our book.
Who's
Yeah.
hosting that?
I think Stephanie might be. I think she nominated it. I could go back and check, but
I'm sorry, we don't need to say it here. I was just interested.
oh, yep.
Live show for that will be in about a month, probably.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yep.
It is definitely.
I did remember. Excellent. Cool. Well,
Yeah. So
yeah.
And then
we will
there's
see.
a read for that on Discord, but like I've usually been doing them at the end of the month. This one I've got it out from the library as an ebook, and so it will probably be, if I do a buddy read, I'll do it sooner in the month if people are up for that.
I think that's a good idea considering how large that book is.
It is a beast.
Didn't know
But
that.
I'm excited.
It's an ebook, so you can't.
It's a tiny book, Kerry. It's fine. It's tiny. You'll fly through it.
Excellent.
Start it
Well,
really soon then, just in case I run out of time for it.
yeah. I mean, do I have it? It's somewhere back there, I think.
Don't show
but
her. It'll scare her.
Yeah.
The buddy read of that on the 1st of April. Just on the safe side.
Yeah.
Come join us in Discord for more weird
Mhm.
stuff.
Excellent. Yes. Thanks everyone for joining. And I think I will go ahead and end the broadcast here. So
Yay.
bye.
Bye.